All right, what's going on, guys? Good evening or good morning if you're some of the few people from Europe that said that you were going to check it out. Um, it's been a little while since we've done one of these, but there's been some new updates that have come that are pretty exciting that I was planning to go over with y'all tonight just to showcase a little bit of the fun things like gradients and the Talus filter, as well as we're going to try and play around with a new terrace filter. It's still, well, all this stuff is still very, very early on in the alpha process right now. So some of the things that you'll see may or may not look that polished, but anyway, we can just dive straight into it. Well, first thing, some of the UI has been tweaked just a little bit. Things are a little tighter, but the UI is going to get from what I understand, a bit more polished before the official release. And as far as the official release timeline, I presume it's still planned to be sometime before the end of the year because I am producing some tutorial series on this software to try and have it finished by the end of the year so that anyone who hasn't been in World Creator 2021, soon to be World Creator 2022, I would imagine at the turn of the new year, can get their hands on figuring out how to use the software by checking out the videos. I haven't done official videos on it yet because obviously there's been a lot that still needs to happen with the program and a lot that has been done on practically a month by month basis. It seems like there's always something that changes that would either be crucial or not so crucial for official content, official videos to be published. So I'm trying to wait just a little bit longer to get things looking just right before I start doing all that. I've written all the tutorials out. I've done a whole lot of rebranding to try and make it more official and professional for all the newcomers. But if you are used to the program, I'm not going to just have things for the new people that haven't been part of this yet, but I'll be doing a whole sort of intermediate level and advanced level series as well soon to follow. And that'll be covering things like, optimizing the landscape for certain use cases, like optimizing it for background elements or optimizing the landscape to be used as a walkable surface, cinematic things, Unreal Engine things, talking about workflow, talking about, best practices for taking an export of this as a 3D mesh to be used in some other application like Cinema 4D or Blender. So just some more advanced things that I will definitely be covering in more official videos, but naturally I'm going to start out with doing it on a more basic level first as the official videos. So again, planning to have those aired by the end of the year, or at least come out the moment that the official release of World Creator 2021 comes out. So back to today. The first thing I'm going to showcase is I think I'm going to showcase the Talus filter first. So let's go ahead and just shape our terrain just a little bit. I'm going to try and do a simple little mound here in the foreground or in the middle. Something pretty sharp here, just a little bit. All right, I want to have this be really sharp, and you'll see why in just a little bit. Hope everyone is doing well this evening, or as I said, this morning. if you're the few chaps from Europe that have asked me about timing. So we're just going to polish some things up real quick. Get some really sharp elements here. And it'll all make sense in just a little bit. All right, I think we're done with the base shape for now. All right, so as you can see, I've got a really weird sort of block here. And that's primarily just going to establish the starting shape because I want to use something that's a little bit more grand with utilizing the Talus filter, because the Talus filter, like any Talus erosion, is going to be kind of smoothing out this point to the base here. So from the top to the bottom, it's going to have this sort of sedimentation buildup, kind of similar to what I did here unintentionally. But there are a couple other things that we can use the Talus filter for other than sedimentation purposes. We can use it even for producing a terraced effect, which I'll cover that here in just a moment. So let's go to add filter. The Talus erosion should appear in the canyon, and you can see filter and Talus. So let's go ahead and select that. And wow, it's done some really strange things, but these are the base settings, and we can obviously tweak these. Again, level strengths, we're sort of used to that already. There's just a pretty interesting new drop down here, which is this combined operation, which they're starting to implement different variations like you would see in Photoshop with, layer operations. So much like whenever you add a new biome, for example, this second biome, we have the operation of overwrite, none, or add to how this particular biome reacts in relation to the previous biome. The filter, for example, is we're going to be using it, or going forward, there's going to be the options to control those operations on a filter level as well. So that's what this drop down is. We can set just min and max and all right now, but we're just going to keep that where it is because we're not going to bother with it today. So with the Talus, you can see that starting point and this bottom point has really smoothed that out to be sediment that has built up in a really strange way. So off is before and on is what we have now. So let's now sort of adjust this so it doesn't look a little bit strange. And I apologize, there's still work that needs to be done with the smoothness of this scrolling. So if it jumps around, I'm just myself trying to get oriented. All right, so length is going to control how long, obviously, the Talus is going to affect. Much like you can control the length of any erosion on how far it progresses down the chain of sequences. So if I were to reduce the length, you can see here it's reducing that length. And you can also see now that since I reduced the length, it has this really strange, sharp drop off. And that's because it's sort of, you have to think about this in 3 dimensions. So it's starting up here and going down to a point, but we don't know what this point is. We can control the height of this by adjusting the max height. So the max height slider is going to say, hey, anywhere from 0 to 500 meters in this landscape, we're going to have this filter sort of contribute to all the detail. If I lower this, and obviously I keep lowering it, you can see that it is now lowering this top threshold, and at the same time, it's sort of lowering this bottom threshold. So if I reduce this down to almost about where these meet, I keep going down, you can control where that fall off is. So it's pretty nifty. So if I keep going down, if I go all the way down, it'll be like nothing happened. And we can control this top range here. So let's do it about right. Let's do it about right here. This is really interesting because it's based off slope, obviously. So the steeper the slope is, that is where the Talus filter is going to take effect. You can see right here, this little notch is somewhat flat. And if I were to lower the max height, you can see that that area is not being affected because sediment is going around this area because the Talus filter is affecting the steeper slopes. Hope that's making a bit of sense. So in essence, if you had more variations of this piece here, or of this tall sort of cliff face, it'll affect these striations in the Talus filter. And you can already start to see some of the terracing pieces, and that's all based on, you know, the shape of the terrain beforehand, why it's like that. The angle lets you describe the literal angle of this erosion. So right now it's at 30 degrees. If we want to flatten it out, we can begin to flatten it out. And naturally, if you start to flatten it out, let me move this light around a little bit. Here we go. All right, so if we were to reduce this angle to where it's really low, naturally it's going to stop here because we said the length is shorter. If we were to increase the length, we can push this out, and this height value here stays the same because that's where we've established this max height. So it's a little trial and error, give or take. So say we want this to be really low, which is really cool. And the length can be really far, and we can reduce the height a little bit. And now we have a really interesting effect here. All right, let's go back to where we were. And this time, let's make the angle really sharp. Let's go to this side and see what this side's doing. All right, now let's take the max height of this and increase it so it could be somewhere around here. And that way we can get some talus erosion to affect the top part of this little plateau right here. So let's increase this height. So it's getting right there. Let's shorten this length. And then let's make the angle really steep. Maybe increase the length just a tad. Now a length, so this length kind of helps control some of that terracing to a degree that I mentioned earlier. As you can see, as I'm reducing the length, we're getting more of this banding right here. A length all the way max is just going to take these values and stretch them out on a ridiculous level. Obviously, the longer the length is, you can see that there's a bit of a sluggish FPS there, because the higher the length, the more your computer takes to produce these effects. Let's try and lower the length some. Okay. Now, let's see what we can do with adjusting the custom base shape a little bit more. Let's go to something real fine. And this time, let's just make a cut right here just to see what it does with a line. So let's try and align it somewhere around here. hold shift, and I'm going to scroll. You can see that filter is dynamically filling in this area here. All right, so there are obviously some really nice effects that we can take place with the Talus filter. So what happens now if we take the Talus filter and add another one? Canyon and Talus. Well, obviously this is a bit much. So let's reduce the angle again. This time, let's make the angle really low. And let's reduce the length. Till it's about. It creates a whole nother plateau. Now, one thing that I haven't showed you yet is the level strength sliders can definitely do some serious damage or help you explore your creativity with how much the filter really takes place of the existing terrain or helps it. And by that, let's go ahead and with this second Talus filter, let's reduce some of these effects here. Actually, let's turn off the first one. You can see we're starting to get that terraced banding here, but let's reduce it. So this filter can do more than just create that Talus sort of effect. What we can do is we can really create some, maybe we should bump this up a little bit. Start creating some irregularities in a sort of terraced effect. If we combine those, got your volume set to 100%. Huh. Let's see. And you can barely hear me? I'm going to adjust that and see how else. Yeah, Kiwi, let me know if there's anything, if it's a little worse or better or not. I increased some of it, but I haven't sort of changed anything from previous streams. So let me know if it's worse or better to your ears or to anybody else's ears. Because I definitely don't want to, just a little better. Don't know why, if it's on my end or not. Well, OBS is telling me that I am about minus 10 dB. So that's right there at the, between the yellow and red mark, about perfect to where it ought to be. So hopefully it's better. Ah, I gotcha. All right, for this second Talus here, I'm going to enable area. And there's some new stuff. Actually, I haven't checked this out yet. let's go ahead and create a mask for this. So let's clear. And then maybe for this other, oops, wrong one, add. Maybe for the second talus, we can edit it a little bit. Oops, wrong. Strength is really high. There we go. Yeah, do let me know if it gets any worse or not, because I definitely don't want you to be able to not hear. Oh, hardware volume gone to near off. All right, well, good. I'm glad it's, well, I'm not glad that it was on your end because you couldn't hear me for a while, but at the same time, I am glad it's on your end because that would be terrible if I was just talking to a void for this whole time.